nutrition segment. We're going to have a conversation this morning with our registered nutritionist, registered dietitian. This is Evans Adra Selame, and we're going to be talking about dietary fiber this morning, a very important component of our diet, all right? A dietary fiber, a necessity of a healthy diet. And Evans is right here. Evans, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm excellent.
Fantastic. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk dietary fiber. I'm sure there's lots of interesting angles to this whole conversation, aside of what we typically think. Because you see, for where I'm sitting, if we say dietary fiber, people are thinking, well, so that you don't have constipation and all those things. But there's a lot more to it than that. Talk to us about it.
Exactly. Thank you. So, a very good morning to our cherished viewers out there. Yes, as you rightly said, when we talk about fiber, it is actually from plant sources, and it is the part of the food we eat which does not digest. And usually, we have macronutrients, which we have proteins, we have carbohydrates, and then we have our fats and oils. Once they are all ingested, they will have to be broken down. But there is one component which we call the dietary fiber, which is from the carbohydrates, which do not actually get digested. We have two main types of dietary fiber. We have the soluble dietary fiber and then the insoluble type. If we talk of the soluble one, the soluble ones actually have the ability to dissolve in water. Okay. And once they dissolve in water, they form a gel-like substance. And anything jelly does not flow very rapidly or quickly.
So that's the soluble one?
That is the soluble one. And so taking the soluble ones, it moves through the digestive system very, very slowly, and that also slows down, digestion. Now, one will ask, where can we get, or from what sources can we get our soluble fiber? We can get them from some of our fruits that we have. So talking about our, guava, pear, and then talking about, our apples and so on. We can also look at our oats. They are also very good sources of, soluble fibers. And then we also have to look at our seeds and then our nuts. Talk of the flax seeds, talk of the beans, talk of the granules. They are also very good sources of, soluble fiber. And you know something? The soluble fiber does a lot in the human body when we have to talk about cholesterol issues. Cholesterol issues because, one, if the food digests rapidly, it means that the nutrient liberation from these foods is going to be very, very rapid, and that will also result in, copious absorption into the bloodstream. That will set in motion the system for storage and what have you. But then, still talking about that, one thing we should know is that these same soluble fiber actually get bound to cholesterol within the digestive system. And you see, for cholesterol, the liver makes a lot of it. But then sometimes we have what we call the dietary sources of the cholesterol. So once they get bound to the soluble fiber, it prevents their absorption into the blood. And that will also affect the total amount we have within the blood.
So it's like the dietary fiber, the soluble version, actually mops up cholesterol.
It mops up cholesterol. That is very good. That is not only what it does, but within the large intestine, there is what we call fermentation by bacteria. So once this fermentation is completed, there is the production of what we call short-chain fatty acids, which are also, when produced and absorbed, slows down the one that is produced by the liver. And that also means that how much of it is added to the total in the body actually reduces. So that is it about the, the soluble fiber. Now, talking about the insoluble fiber, those ones are obtained from our whole grains. So when we have to talk about, some particular, whole grains like the rice, if we have to talk about brown rice, if we have to talk about our wheat, if we have to talk about, maize. Now, these days, one thing you have to know is that modern systems of food processing is actually getting most of the fiber extracted or removed from the food. And so when that happens, you realize that most of these are consumed without the fiber. And usually, talking about the insoluble fiber, what it does is that it adds bulk to the stool. Most often than not, like you said, you made mention of constipation. So if you want to have a bulky stool, that is one of the sources we actually have to be looking at. Not only that, but you have to be looking at our okra. It's also a very good source of our, insoluble fiber. We may have to talk about our garden eggs, as well. Also a very good sources. Now, the role of dietary fiber in the body goes beyond just constipation. If you take fiber, fiber is actually very low in calorie, or what you call energy. And so for people who are overweight and are expecting to lose weight, they may have to go in for our soluble and then the insoluble fibers. Now, we may have to shift a little away from a condition like diabetes. Yes, for most people who are diabetic, it is because they are having more of the starchy foods consumed. So what we have to do is to reduce the starches. Talk of, banku, kenke, fufu, plain rice and so on. We have to make sure that we reduce this one and then increase, our vegetable portions. And this is what we actually have to do so that total calorie or sugar being produced from them will actually, reduce. And that will also affect the total amount we have in the blood. So it's actually very important that we ensure that we eat a varied meal. I mean, incorporating our vegetables into our soups, into our stews, and also using them as salads. It's very, very important.
So are there specific dietary fibers recommended for certain age, and apart from the age group, also like if you have health problems, are there specific dietary fibers recommended for people?
Yes, there are specific dietary fibers. So what I want our cherished viewers to know is that if people are having diabetes, we will look at a combination of both, the soluble and then the insoluble one. And then for people who are actually hypertensives, we will also have to look at a combination of both of these. So not only that, but cholesterol issues as well, people who are actually, obese. So the whole idea is to widen the scope, go in for the fruits, go in for the nuts and then the seeds, go in for our vegetables as well, because these are the known sources. I know of what you call the supplementation when it comes to the consumption of fiber, but I would not actually recommend supplementation, especially when we have the sources, available. So let us go in for these very ones, because God in his wisdom created us as natural beings.
So basically the natural ones.
The natural ones.
You would prefer someone going for the natural one instead of a fiber bar.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or
now,
energy bar that
or
people,
energy bar that people actually go in for. So let us resort to natural. Anytime you put in a food that is, so to say, artificial or processed, what happens is that it sets in motion a different pathway within the body. So we wouldn't want to create other channels or pathways of metabolizing all the foreign products that are ingested. But let us work with what God has given to us, so that the channels that are in place, the systems that are already in place will be utilized. It is actually very, very important.
So how does dietary fiber actually contribute to controlling hunger cravings?
Thank you. So you see, one thing that happens is that when it comes to cravings for hunger, it is because people consume things that easily that are easily absorbed. So to say the processed food product. But fiber actually slows down the digestion. It actually adds bulk to the food and increases what we call satiety. So once they are consumed, people are satisfied. It takes close to 2.5 to 3 hours for digestion to be completed. And so the tendency to actually eat and then within the next hour get hungry is actually very, very minimal. Yeah. So that is one thing I want us to take note of. And you know something, one thing about fiber also is that it actually has what we call hydrophilic heads. And when we talk about hydrophilic heads, they have the ability to retain water. And this is where the prevention or the management of constipation comes in. So people who eat foods that are actually fiber rich actually, have the tendency to drink a lot of water. For most people, it is not hunger, and they don't have to go in for, the sugar-sweetened beverages. What they actually have to go in for is water. Once they drink more water, they are actually okay. Yeah. So when we talk about, looking at how fiber controls, hunger and cravings, it is because it helps to slow down the digestive process and helps the individual to drink more water, which is very, very good.
All right, so someone that is going through a low fiber diet, how can they now increase fiber in their system? Because I know some people go through some low fiber diet.
It's true. Yeah. So as I have mentioned earlier, many ways to do that. Number one is to ensure that for a whole day you have a fruit.
Okay.
For a whole day you have some vegetables, whether in soup or in stew. That is one thing we have to make sure we actually do. And then also when it comes to, our beverages, there are people who actually prefer to, have the sugar-sweetened beverages and what have you. And some actually resort to 100% fruit juices. Now, these ones, they have the juices extracted or removed from them. And that means that the fiber has also been removed. Yeah.
Oh.
So the right thing would be that, let's do the smoothies.
Smoothies are better than juices.
Than the juices. Because for them, you have the fiber intact.
Yeah. So it's like when you're licking an orange or sucking it out, it's important to
eat the roughage or the fiber in it. Yeah. If you want to have pineapple juice, don't juice the pineapple and take the juice, leaving the roughage behind. I would prefer that we blend it and have everything intact. It's very, very important. For people who actually want porridges, these days we have wheat porridge and then the oats, we have the oblayo and what have you. Yeah. They prefer to take out the fiber from the maize before they use it in preparing the oblayo. I would prefer, because the moment it is milled partially and then strained or sieved, the fiber has actually been taken out. Yeah. So the right thing is that even after milling, we have to make sure that we don't sieve it before we use it. There is what we call corn porridge. Most people, I don't know, there is this craving for very smooth kind of porridges, the Hausa cocoa. People prefer it sieved or the strained style. It is not the right thing. So the right thing is that we don't have to sieve or strain the corn dough before we use that in the preparation of our porridge.
Porridges.
It's very, very important. Let's keep it intact, because at the end of the day, once this is done, you are likely not to obtain energy in excess. So let us widen the net. Let us eat everything in the wholesome form. And let us not take anything of the parts out. That is one thing I will recommend. Fantastic. Now, there are other nutrients also that are actually embedded in the fiber itself. So if you take the maize, there is a little amount of protein in there. If you take the wheat, little amount of protein in there. So if we get the fiber out completely, we are also getting those ones out.
Okay. How do people get in touch with you to find out more if they want to follow you?
Well, thank you so much. So my phone number is 0243 827612.
Okay.
On Facebook, I'm Evans Adra.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Evans. And we've been talking, speaking to Evans Adra Selame. He's been explaining how important dietary fiber is. And it's a necessity for a healthy